appearances, so pretty good resume during his time in Arizona. But on Wednesday, the university decided that they will be going in a different direction. And I saw a lot of mixed emotions from this one, Ryan. I mean, I saw a ton of fans saying that, this was an awful decision. This was terrible. And, this was just so bad for the program. And then I saw some other fans saying that it was a really great decision. So, I mean, what were your initial thoughts, Ryan? I know we've talked about, Sean Miller's future before, but, what were your initial thoughts when you first heard the news?
I was surprised and I was happy. I was surprised because of the timing, because it's been a while since the season ended, I believe over a month, and they had a lot of time to wait around to make the decision, and they just came to it recently, obviously. But yeah, I was surprised there, but I was happy because I've been saying for the past 2+ years that the program does need to move in a different direction and should have a long time ago. Sean Miller is, to me, the definition of a mediocre coach. He's did good things here. But he has shown every time and every chance that he's had that he cannot get to the next level and get past that good level to extend to that great level. Because let's be honest, I mean he hasn't gotten to the Elite Eight or past that or past the Sweet 16 even in 7 years, which is pretty crazy. He hasn't been to a March Madness tournament since 2017. So, I mean, in the recent past, he hasn't been able to get the job done. And yeah, I really do think the program needs a fresh start to get to that, true blue blood level as Robbins and Hickey wish for.
Yeah, I think when I first saw, I think I was honestly a little bit disappointed. Not necessarily disappointed because Sean Miller was not going to be the head coach. I was more upset to see that, just because I know how much Sean Miller liked this current, and he was liked so hard by the current and former players. And now that he's out, I just have this feeling that we're going to see a few players transfer out or decommit from the team. We've already actually seen some players decommit, which we'll get into that later. But I think that next year's team just had a ton of potential and really could have been competitive, and that success was going to be led by Sean Miller. So I think now that I see this coaching change, I hope that it doesn't scare anyone or any of the players away, because I think that this team really did have some very high hopes next year. But I can't help but really think of the timing of this decision, right? Like, why now, right? Why 5 weeks after the season? Why not just do it right away after the season? Why not, way back in 2018 when the NCAA investigation first broke? Why not do it then, right? So to me, I don't think this decision had anything to do with the NCAA investigation. It certainly had a big part in it, with recruiting and all that. And it was probably, weighed into it when the final decision. But, they just didn't have any success in the United States in recruiting. So, they opted to go overseas, and, that obviously hurt them on the recruiting trail. And part of that was probably just because of the NCAA, investigation. But, the athletic department has been nothing but supportive of Miller during this investigation, right? They got hit with the notice of allegations, back in November, right? Which was, the only things, that they were actually directed at Miller with those allegations was, it was just that one thing about, lack of institutional control, right? It had no mention, of the DeAndre Ayton scandal. It had no mention of, him being involved in the Adidas bribery scandal. And it didn't mention at all the academic fraud scandal. The only thing that he had was lack of institutional control. So
but let's not blow over that part. I mean, that is a big part, lack of institutional control. That's what you want from a head coach, So if they're saying that, and then maybe they reassessed it, they came to that conclusion in that part. But something I wanted to get back to is the timing, as you just said. It doesn't make sense because the past, if you want to defend Sean Miller, which I haven't been the one to do over the past few years, but if I want to do it right now, I could argue that the last 2 seasons he hasn't had a chance to go to the March Madness tournament. Last year, the COVID pandemic hit, no one had a chance to compete in March. And then this season they self-imposed a ban, and that decision is way over probably Sean Miller's head. That was a decision probably made by Robbins and Hickey, and maybe Sean had a little bit to say there. But I mean, why wouldn't you fire him basically after last year or even 2 years ago, before the season before the pandemic? because these last 2 years, let's be real, were a wash. And basically, a lot of schools is they basically just cross them out if they didn't play well. They have excuses, built-in excuses, and they're real excuses. Teams what Arizona didn't go through any hard times with the COVID-19 virus, but teams did. So I mean, the timing is just very weird, and I just can't stop thinking about it because it doesn't make any sense. As we've said in the past, Jacob, it's this team coming into this season didn't have high expectations. You know, they were projected to finish about 6th to 7th in the conference, and they finished, I think, a little above that. So what did they expect this year? You know?
Right. I think the NCAA investigation should not be glossed over at all, right? I think that was honestly, I don't think that was the main reason why they decided to him, but it definitely played a factor into it, right? And I look at, kind of one moment, where you think about, where did the Sean Miller era go wrong, right? Like, why did they fire him? I think you look at right when the investigation broke, the program was really never the same, right? I mean, like the recruiting was never the same after that. They were forced to go overseas because they were missing out on 5-star guys in state. I mean, it was really never the same after that. So I think, his contract being up at the end of next season, so the talk right now is either do you fire him now or, do you give him an extension? I think you just can't give him an extension with the investigation still hanging over this program's head. And it's unfortunate that it's still pending and that they're still having to deal with this. But, I just thought it was interesting that there was only one, allegation towards Miller. And it was just, how did you not know this was going on? It had no mention of him being involved in it. So it looked like Miller was going to come out of this, not, completely unscathed, but, worse or, better than what people thought. But you're right. I think that was the investigation, that was the real turning point with this program. I think the talk was, maybe why not just let him, coach out the final year of his contract, right? And then, just why not just be transparent and be like, we can't give you a contract extension because of these, the investigation.
I agree with that.
You have a good team here, so let's just coach this thing out one more year and we'll reevaluate. But I think if they really wanted Sean Miller to stay around and, they weren't scared of the NCAA investigation at all, I think they would do that. But it's like the thing with that is that if you ended up letting him coach the final year, chances are this team would have done really well. I think this is a good team next year, and they probably would have made some noise in the NCAA tournament. So if you have a good season from Sean Miller and that team, how do you not give him a contract extension, right? So, now Sean Miller has the leverage. So they look at the situation now and it's like, oh, we have all the leverage to make this decision right now. We can't let him coach out the final year of his contract and force him to give a contract extension. But really, the program's reputation was just never the same after the investigation. They had some success overseas, but they really did miss out on some 5-star guys. It's such a tough call because, next year's team is so promising, but it would have been quite the dilemma if this team, had success next year. And then, in Miller's final year, they would have, had no choice but to give him a contract extension. So the timing right now makes sense, but it's also really confusing, like you said.
Yeah, and something else I wanted to get to was the timing and the contract specifically, because as Hiki said in the press conference and the rumors is that they met the night before, they met Tuesday night, and then again Wednesday morning made the decision. So, and supposedly there were contract negotiations and extensions, talked about. So it doesn't make sense. You went from wanting to go into the meeting to extend them and then firing them. So that really doesn't make sense, because I don't think he deserves an extension at all. I think the two options should have been he's fired, he's gone, he's out, or he gets to play the year out, because on Hiki and Robin's defense, that's what he earned, and that's what he deserves right now. He deserves and he should be forced to play it out, because he didn't earn a contract extension. But one last point I wanted to get to before we move on is something that I think that Robbins and Hiki saw, that they decided they wanted to move on, was, last season when they struggled a little bit, they had the 2 5-star guys, they had Zeke 4-star, and they had a team where they were expecting to make a lot of noise, and they didn't really reach those expectations. They lost a lot of big games when they were supposed to win. And I really think they looked at the development for, say, with Nico Mannion, a guy who was projected as a lottery pick coming into Arizona and then got drafted 48. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into that. I mean, the pandemic hit, no tournament. But I mean, I think stuff like that, the development of talent, is something they look towards when making this decision.
Yeah, I think that was probably the ultimate decision as well, right? You look at, the recruitment, the argument for Sean Miller was that he was a great recruit and maybe an okay coach, right? If he's had those moments where it's like, people say he's a great recruit, but he's an okay coach, right? But these last couple of years, the recruiting has not been the same as it was, when he first got here. So now you're kind of average in both coaching and recruiting. So honestly, I think that was honestly the ultimate decider. Not so much, obviously this NCAA investigation is hanging over the heads, but I think they really did just want to go in a different direction, start fresh, and just kind of, rebuild this whole thing, right? They got a new football coach now, and now they've got a new men's basketball coach. They wanted to, have these guys that they have and that they've had chosen and picked out, if that makes any sense. But, the Sean Miller era is now over. And